so I've decided to start reading chapters from my book, The Little Autist That Did. So, let's jump right into it, shall we? Comparison is the bane of happiness. Quote by Adornis. Prologue. There was once a train that was chugging along. Then the future caught up, and it was forgotten quicker than an absentee step-parent. Think of this book as a combination of an autist's autobiography of stories you can only hear in movies, combined with the documentary part of explaining why. Example. Crikey, we have an alligator biting and dragging a gazelle underwater, so it tumbles to disorient its prey, drowning it to save it as a snack for later in its lair. Try saying that 3 times fast. Second, you're getting the neural spiciness with a little bit of extra flavor and a little less pirate accent. Simply put, this book reads like a novel. I'm a human being with an incredible story. You might not always understand the nuance, but you will get the gist with a little translation. I am an autist. Let me explain how this book's written. I take off the filter as much as possible so you can get a real look. What is the filter? Some of us call it the mask. But it's a way of copying parts of all of you and fit it in and not be bullied/fired. If you met me in person in real life, you'd have no idea I was autistic. People that have known me for years have no clue. In this book, I show a little bit more of the side none of you will ever see in person and cut back on the mask. #anti-COVID. Bad joke, but you know what? They're going to be in here. There will be bad jokes in this book. You have been warned. Not everything written is comfortable, so I give myself a mental break with humor, even if no one else gets it. Every story is meant to build a foundation for understanding why we autists are both naturally inquisitive and impulsive. Plus, who the hell has 2 proms, 3 prom dates, then anti-brags about how they were everyone's excuse? Seriously, I tell on myself more than a man on his deathbed. Say whatever you want, but this book is honest. If I circle around a topic before landing, it's simply to give context. Plus, I kind of enjoy the sound of my own voice. Give it a second. I'm reading. It's right up there with when my father said I had a face for radio. My writing is the way I speak. Side note. And real talk on 2020 parenting. Y'all need to teach etiquette and start being nicer. Basically, every religion since the beginning of time talks about being good to others, not being angry. Except the weird ones, we call those cults. But someone with an emotional impairment and an overthinking brain can try to become a better person, then everyone reading can do a little better too. Give it a try. Start with today, then give tomorrow a harder swing at it. Rinse and repeat, and somewhere along the line you'll be hitting like Babe Ruth. Show that to the next generation and inspire them to swing harder. Book excuses. Or book dedication. Haha. This book is dedicated to the only true love of my life that taught me I never really knew what love was. This book is meant to help others in the same spirit as her saving cats from being homeless, even though she's allergic to cats. It is in the spirit of her donating her TV and clothes to the less fortunate. My heart will always be with you. If you ever doubt that, I will be here. Dedication for parents. To all of your parents of autistic children, bless you. The feelings you must have had for your children must be overflowing with joy and compassion, but it can also be a bit trying. It's not easy raising an autist, but in this book, I plan on assisting you in your journey. To begin, let's analyze how we autists learn and how you can approach that learning with compassion and love. Now that I've weeded out the younger autists looking at this book as a manual, let me pass on some information. Some of us can be manipulative. Other parts of this book, you will see me capitalize when making a strong point or using triple periods for dramatic pause. An autist would see that in a heartbeat, which is why I am not using them here, in the book. We notice what stands out. I've known several people like me that look at the surrounding context to see if what they are reading might be valuable and worth additional time to study. All of this happens in seconds. Many neurodivergents I personally know will often pick up a book, scan the front, back, first pages, then discard the book and keep looking, or keep reading. It's because they obviously didn't find what they were looking for, or they did. For me, it begins with reading the first and last sentence of the paragraphs of the first page. Whether my intent and actions meet with success in the regard of giving you guys a fair warning remains to be seen. For a lot of us, our younger selves are spent trying to figure out how to get what we want. But often we both have sharp memories and approach solutions mechanically. It's not that we're evil little bastards. We simply don't have the emotional capacity to see other people as other people as quickly as all of you do. And if you don't, well, we call those sociopaths. And they're out there. In every child's mind, they come first until they learn differently. Autism is simply a slower learning curve for autists. Until we develop empathy, all humans are sociopathic bastards, not caring if mommy needs sleep. Milk makes a baby good. Later, we learn mommy needs to sleep and become human beings, developing a sense of empathy. Human beings are predictable. Autists, less so. Neurodivergents are actually more predictable, but the catch is most of you normies don't understand us and how we think, meaning we can genuinely surprise you, thus unpredictable to you. Read this book knowing that some children, as much as you love them, will test boundaries. Functional autists can get very creative in mapping and understanding the edge limits of those boundaries. We are mechanically minded people, so learning boundaries and rules is second nature to us. Once a boundary has been reached, the next objective will be to expand the boundary, and I've never met an autist that didn't try this in one of their favorite video games. We can also be meticulous in our efforts to understand and stretch barriers. I must have spent hours pulling off a 90-degree lateral turn between the two short buildings in the training level of Star Fox 64 without taking damage. But I pulled it off. Thousands of attempts. Not all autists are as adventurous as you are going to read in this book, and I'm kind of glad for that. Learning empathy is the most important lesson an autist can learn, because we are naturally deficient in the area. And it has to be taught from a place of compassion, not discipline. Teach it from a stance of discipline, and again, I've never met an autist that didn't resent the giver. The same way the first paragraph was deliberately written to deter young neurodivergents, you know, that one where I was telling you about, hey, you are so awesome for being a parent. I will also use references in this book only a mind old enough to have children will understand. We're talking about figures of speech from a period of time youngsters won't get. This is done to hide subtext in stories, somewhat. I'm saying this here because I personally know functional autists that will research the time period to understand the context, and I would have done that myself as a child, and have. This includes teenage adults seeking to gain more control of their surroundings. To any post-millennial reading this book, and not the dedication section, some of what I write will be lost on them. Think of it how, okay, we're going to go a little bit in my background here, but how Jeremiah is basically an explanation and translation for Revelations. This section is kind of the Rosetta Stone of the book. I have a history with the church, and that's also going to come out. But I welcome every person from every religion, race, creed, gender, preference, etc. If it comes out, that's because I tend to speak from personal examples and metaphors. Now, true story. This book started out with a lot of swearing to deter parents from letting their children read this. In editing, I realized I was punishing parents with vulgar language that the children wouldn't mind. That said, this book is not for children. Teenagers with supervision? Sure. Read with them, but read ahead before them. Like microexpressions, I believe functions of autism translate universally into every global culture, but are individual in expression. Meaning each person is different, and we come in more flavors than Baskin-Robbins. Long story short, I hope a lot of this book can be applicable around the world. Crossed fingers. My goal in this book is to show autistic perceptions, so that all of you can understand and better relate to people like myself. If you remember no other phrase from this book, remember this. The greatest gift you can give an autist is the benefit of the doubt. We make mistakes, but we can also accomplish some truly tremendous tasks. And again, never met an autist that didn't have / finish a big project enjoying every minute of it. That said, my goal in this book is not to be an example. We like to use our brains and creativity. This book is deliberately meant to be avoided by younger autistic eyes because we can be reckless in the pursuit of what we consider fun, without regard to how it can affect others or without understanding yet how it can affect others. I don't want some of my stories to be considered inspiration. We are in our own heads a lot, and parents should also be aware of some of our capacity and see why behind everything we do, or at least understand it to some degree. Lastly, the reason I will use bad language in this book is that I want you parents to take this seriously and not handing this book off to young children or thinking this book will be their guide instead of real parenting. Parents, this book is designed for adults, not children. Young adults with supervision. But in no way, shape, or form is this designed for children. I cannot emphasize that enough.